Good afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending on where you are in the world. It is Tuesday today, and we are back for another Confidence Convo. This is season 2, episode 6, I want to say. And this week, we are diving into what is inner child work and how it can help you become confident. So, I don't know whether a lot of you have heard about inner child work. Joanna and I both know a lot about it, and we thought it'd be really interesting to kind of dive into this topic today and give you tools and tips and more information if you've never heard about it on how it can help your confidence. But before we get started, I'd like to introduce myself. I am Davina Maria, and I am a master coach and founder of the Restore Yourself Method and host of Worthy Woman Facebook group. And I help female go-getters in their 30s develop unshakable confidence so they can powerfully step into their limitless potential. Over to you, Joanna.
Hello, everybody. Hi, Davina. My name is Joanna Tonkin. I'm a registered psychotherapist and confidence coach. I help young adults improve their self-confidence so that they can become successful. Davina and I got together to create this for you because we are obsessed with all things personal development and we strongly believe in the power of learning from one another.
And just to clarify, we are not perfect at being confident all of the time. Just like you, we move through our struggles and overcome obstacles and mindsets to continuously improve. So just think of us as guides by your side. So I absolutely love inner child work, and I feel very passionate about it. But I wanted to kind of start off today with maybe a definition of what is an inner child, or how you would describe an inner child to someone who maybe has never heard about this before.
Yeah, great question. So inner child work is a technique that's used by therapists, coaches, other forms of healer. And it's about recognizing and healing from childhood trauma. And that word trauma can be really triggering for some people. And, thinking about like the worst things that's ever happened to you. And some people might think that they, don't have any childhood trauma.
Yeah.
The reality is there's big T traumas and there's little T traumas, right? Big things can be like, war and combat, physical or sexual abuse, car accidents, anything like that can be like a big T trauma. And the small T traumas can be anything such as like neglect or abandonment or
Yeah.
shaming, a child when you were a child, feeling shamed by a parent or grown up figure. So really, everybody at some point in their life has some form of trauma. And what inner child work does, um, it actually reprograms or reparents, and I'll explain that in a minute, your subconscious that's been conditioned or that's been programmed to believe things about yourself that then shapes how you think, you feel, and you behave. So it's about reprogramming some of that core programming and beliefs that you've had ingrained in you at a very early young age, aka your inner child.
I love that. And I know that you've touched on trauma, and you're right. A lot of people can get triggered by the word trauma. And I've met a lot of clients who, when we approach trauma work, they would say, I don't have any trauma. My childhood was great. Everything was amazing. So I completely understand when you talk about sort of big T and little T trauma. When it comes to sort of inner child work, would you say it's only helpful when it comes to trauma, or would you say it's sort of like something good that you can kind of have with you as a tool in your toolbox for your everyday life?
That's a good question. And I think, to kind of just generally say, it's not specifically about healing childhood trauma, it's about reprogramming childhood conditioning. And maybe that's
Yeah,
better languaging to use.
yeah.
So anything that happened to you in childhood that kind of got frozen or got
Mm,
maybe it's soft wired into your brain, into your body, into your
yeah,
physiology, that you want to then have another kind of like a redo or an opportunity to
hmm,
fix any of those stuck or frozen program integration.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And for anyone who's hearing this for the first time and is like, oh, I've never heard about this. Obviously, we don't want to go too deep into this, like the psychology of it. But I wanted to ask because my understanding on inner child, um, obviously, I've not been trained in the way that you have. So I think our understandings are slightly different. And I love how you've clarified about the conditioning because I feel like that is such a key um, part for anyone who's triggered by the word trauma. I think the conditioning word um, will probably sit a lot easier and help them to kind of understand and embrace inner child work. But I know that when we are children and maybe we do have any kind of trauma, and I know that you've given examples of it. And for me, I always talk about things as well, like, if you were at school and your mum or dad just picks you up a little bit late and you get anxious, that could be classed as trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sometimes it's not necessarily the bad things, quote unquote bad things. Sometimes it is little situations that maybe make you feel unsafe or uncomfortable. And if you don't kind of close the trauma cycle, you can continue to have these feelings and get triggered in the future. And then I kind of understand that that's when inner child work can be really helpful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So kind of what you're talking about is how behaviors as an adult stem from childhood experiences. So let's use your
Mm-hmm.
example of your parents picking up late from school. In that moment, that child might believe, I'm unlovable, or I'm
Yeah.
not worthy of my parents' attention. I'm not deserving of them to be, on time to pick me up. And it's not something you think maybe logically, it's just something you
Mm-hmm.
feel physically.
Yeah.
Or you can think it logically as well. But then that belief about I'm not lovable or I'm not deserving of my parents' attention or them to show up for me gets ingrained in that core programming. And then throughout your entire life, you're chasing relationships that are going to make you feel more lovable, that are going to make you
Yeah.
deserving and worthy because of this conditioning that happened as a child. So, what inner child work actually does is because you can't actually go back and you can't actually redo that moment in time, through creative visualization, because again, the mind does not know the difference between what's imagined and what's real,
Yeah.
right? We go through creative visualization and we actually go back to that moment in time where you're standing outside of your school and you're waiting for your parents. And through inner child work, which is basically, reparenting, you show up as the adult version of yourself in order to meet the unmet needs of that child and address any of those unmet needs and then do the healing work. So basically showing up for yourself the way that you wish or wanted a parent to show up for you,
Yeah.
because realistically, your parents could not, no matter who they are, how amazing wonderful they are, could not meet 100% of your needs 100% of the time. That's not possible. But now that you're an adult and you know everything you think, feel, and how you behave, you can meet all of your needs all of the time. You don't need another person to do that. So it's actually about like getting your power back and
Yeah.
reinventing yourself so that you can heal those unmet needs from childhood through this process of creative visualization, which can be really healing.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I love the kind of the way you said it of taking your power back because I feel
Mm-hmm.
like, if you don't do this work, and obviously there's lots of other work that you can do to kind of heal, but if you don't do the inner child work, there's a possibility that, like you said, you might seek out the needs that you didn't have met as a child, and you might continue to seek them out as an adult. And I think the kind of looking outside of yourself, I know we've spoken about this in previous episodes, the kind of looking outside of yourself is probably what can really damage your confidence because you're not kind of turning inwards and going, okay, I know that the only person I can control is me. Let me try and understand what I need in this moment and see how I can meet that need to the best of my ability. And then, and I know we spoke about this in a self care episode, that is self care in itself. And if you can fill your own cup by meeting your own needs, the minute someone else meets your needs, it's almost like a confirmation that you deserve that lovely stuff rather than going out searching for it, chasing it, and then never finding it.
Totally.
Mm,
Totally.
yeah,
And like this is one of the most profound ways that I've experienced at like changing those limiting beliefs from childhood.
yeah,
And so I think this can be a really useful approach, however you use inner child work to help access that core programming and do that reconditioning so that you can be the one to meet your needs instead of, like you said, looking outside of yourself to have those
Yeah.
met, because people, might not know what you need, and communicating that can be really challenging, and getting your needs met from other people can be really difficult, but you can meet 100% of your needs 100% of the time if you're open to learning how.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I love that. And I know it's something that we've spoken about previously a lot as well. We've spoken about neural pathways, and I just wanted to check for anyone who's kind of been listening to us over the last year or so, would you say that reparenting yourself or deconditioning, would you say that is a similar process to kind of changing your neural pathways and, trying to kind of find a new path to get what you need rather than going down the same paths over and over again?
Yeah, it's exactly what it is. That was one of the analogies I was thinking to even use. So,
Yeah.
through childhood conditioning, we've discussed this before. Your neurological pathways in your brain kind of get programmed. And so I've used the analogy of like a riverbed, and the water kind
Hmm.
of flows in the same direction down the riverbed over time. You've used the analogy like in the forest, I think, and if you're driving
Yeah.
through the bush, just kind of changing course to make your own path,
Yeah.
can be like reprogramming your brain. So what these creative visualizations do is they offer your brain another opportunity to see another way that that situation could have played out, where your needs were met, where you reparented yourself, so that your brain actually believes that it happened, because your brain does not know the difference between what's imagined and what's real, right?
Yeah.
And so your brain actually believes that that happens on a subconscious level, and then you don't continue to behave out in ways trying to get those unmet needs met,
Mm.
prove that you're lovable, deserving, or worthy, or whatever that need is, right?
Yeah.
You feel in your body, in your bones, in your brain that you are enough because of this inner child work and the like.
Yeah, I love that. I love it so much. I mean, I do inner child work, so I feel I'm a little bit biased anyway. Um, but I kind of wanted to talk about if someone's hearing this for the first time and they think, I need to do that. I need to do inner child work. Where would you advise someone to start?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and definitely really important. There's a few things. So inner child work can be rather confronting. Like
Mm.
you're accessing your subconscious, you're accessing your past traumas or conditioning or wounding, and it can be rather confronting to address that on your own. So
Mm.
I would say if it's your first time doing inner child work, you might benefit from speaking to a professional, a coach, a therapist, another healer, even a trusted friend, just to kind of
Yeah.
have someone to support you on this journey, because it can be really difficult and it takes a lot of courage to actually go back there and do this work.
Mm.
Um, with that said, there's activities you can do on your own if you feel comfortable. There's like letter writing activities. So we were taught and I experienced writing, having a dialogue with your inner child. So we call it the
Mhm.
left hand, right hand exercise. So with your dominant hand, whichever one that is, you connect with yourself, with your grown up adult self, and ask your inner child questions. What was it like for you when this happened? Or what was it like for you when so and so did this to you? And then with your
Yeah.
non-dominant hand, because it's like the child, like, it's not going to be super clear, and it's kind of like a child's
Uh-huh.
writing, you write the response. And so having that dialogue with yourself, asking the questions from yourself, from your adult parent self, and then having the child respond back with your less dominant hand. There's also on YouTube, you could probably find some inner child healing meditations or visualizations. So that will bring you inside your body to connect with your inner child on the inside. If you're
Yeah.
moving through different types of healing or just connecting to your inner child. Other exercises like writing a letter to a parent or family member or teacher, whoever it was that kind of impacted you, it made you feel or believe that about yourself, and just write down your entire truth and what you wish or wanted to say to that person. Not actually
Mhm.
going to send this letter to them, but just like writing it out as if you were going to say it to them. It helps you kind of like release the
Yeah.
emotional energy of what you're carrying. um, Looking at a picture of your younger self, this can be really helpful too. If you find a picture of yourself at 7, and 7 is when you started to believe that you're not smart enough because the teacher shamed you because of your grades or
Yeah.
presentation. You find a picture of yourself at 7 years old, and then you can journal from that place, write about what it was like for you at 7, and what this teacher made you feel or believe about yourself, and just kind of like exploring it, bringing the magnifying glass, the awareness to that inner child, just connecting with that part in whatever way feels comfortable and safe for you.
Yeah.
Really helpful. And then lastly, I would say engaging in play. If there's any activities you love
Yeah.
to do as a child, if you love the monkey bars, or you love gymnastics, or you loved playing basketball, or whatever it was that you loved, absolutely loved as a child, that, you know, eventually maybe you felt judged or embarrassed or shamed to continue to play. I saw something today that said 9-year-old children are no longer playing anymore. And it's startling psychologists, because, you know, play is such an important part of our imagination, our creativity,
Yeah.
our ability to think through problems, our ability to figure out what's possible and multiple endings of a situation. And they were saying that the children are feeling judged by other classmates or students,
Yeah.
by parents, by teachers, and not wanting to play as long and as much as they used to. And so that's one of the things that happens, you know, throughout our development. And so really
Yeah.
encouraging yourself to connect to that play, connect to that childlike innocence of freedom, if it's like trampolining or swimming or whatever it is that you love to do as a kid, and just like be free to play, judgment free and shame free in that way, can be really helpful and nurturing for that inner child.
Yeah, I love all of those. And I've actually done all of those exercises, but I've done a couple of them slightly differently. And what I wanted to say to anyone that's listening is, the minute you started talking about play, I started smiling and I
I
started
saw
like
you.
thinking about it. And I was like, oh yeah, you just think about all the playful things that you do, or I
Mm-hmm.
do a lot of playful things. So I kind of like think about all the little silly things I do, or the playful things I do, and it actually makes you feel good, even if you just think about it. Like, it's you can't get away from it.
Totally.
But a couple of the exercises that you mentioned, which I love, by the way, the one that you spoke about with the left hand, right hand journaling, I've done that one slightly differently. I've done it in the past in more of a physical way, where you get two chairs and you put them facing each other,
Mm-hmm.
and then you kind of sit in one chair and you're adult Davina, and then you talk to younger Davina, and then you go and you sit in the other chair, and then you're younger Davina and you respond. And it's the
Mm-hmm.
same exercise, it's the same process. It's just the difference between writing it down and speaking it out.
Totally.
And the one with the picture, where you said to look at a picture of yourself, I actually know people that put a picture of their younger self in their purse or their wallet. And then every time they open it to pay for something, the kind of awareness is, it's in front of you. And if your purse or your wallet doesn't have that kind of clear plastic, whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
you can also put it on your phone, like a screensaver, or, a background of something, so that every time you kind of open your messages, you kind of see yourself. And again, it's just a little check to be like, ooh, what does my inner child need today?
Yeah, absolutely.
I absolutely love all those exercises. And I feel like I wanted to talk about one thing as well, because when I first did inner child work, I did it in a group setting, and everyone else in the room had something like at the end. I can't remember if it was a visualization or if it was a meditation. I can't remember what exactly it was, but everyone at the end had a comment, and they were like, oh, I saw my inner child, and she was doing this and he was doing that, and they all had something. And I had nothing. I was like, I didn't see anything. I didn't see anyone. I had nothing. I think it was a meditation, because I think I may have kind of fallen asleep and then woken up at the end. And I wanted to just say to anyone, if you start to do the work and you don't see anything or you don't feel a difference, keep going. Because it might be that at the beginning you're very disconnected from your inner child. Maybe you've never connected to them before, and you're very, very disconnected. And it might be that you might just need to keep going, so that your inner child kind of feels safe enough to come out, and then you can connect from that place.
Totally, totally. And the last thing that I think is really important just to talk about is kind of like how this affects your confidence, how this can help you become more confident. So
Yeah.
the last couple minutes, if we could just talk about that, and I don't know if you have any personal experiences to share, but I can share some of my personal experiences or my experiences with clients. What do
Yeah.
you think? How do you think that this work can help you improve your confidence?
Well, I feel like the inner child work, or the work that you do to connect your inner child, kind of like underpins a lot of what I do with my clients, in the sense that it kind of takes me back to episode 1 when we started the podcast, and we spoke about what confidence is. And I feel like doing the inner child work really cements that. It really cements your inner trust, your inner belief, and your kind of capacity within yourself to kind of have a triggering situation that happens outside of you, and you know exactly how to kind of go inward, deal with that situation, and you don't need the external validation. You don't need to kind of go outside of you and look for something to meet that need. You know exactly how to kind of calm yourself down, and you are very connected to your inner self in terms of knowing what you need. And when you know what you need, you are able to meet that need. And if you need to ask for help, you know that too. So I think it just helps you from an inner perspective to feel a lot more secure and therefore confident.
Yeah, I think that's really good, really great explanation of how it can help you with your confidence. I know that we talked about this before, but kind of like the beliefs that you have, the conditioning that you have in childhood really get kind of programmed into your brain, into your body, and affect how you behave. And so if you feel
Yeah.
like you're not behaving confidently, it's likely that there is some conditioning or trauma that
Mm,
happened from a young age that might need to be reprogrammed. That parts of you, inner children, parts of you that need to be reparented. And
yeah.
actually, by doing this inner child work, it can really help you with your confidence because let's say you were, in grade 8 and you got a really bad mark on a test and your friends made fun of you or your teacher, said like shamed you for the grades, you might believe that you're not smart enough. So if you can go back to that moment in time and reparent your grade 8 self and reparent that part, it can
Yeah.
really help you connect to that part of you, to heal that part of you so that you no longer believe that you're not smart enough and then act out in ways today that are trying to get that need met by proving that you're smart
Yeah.
enough or feeling that imposter syndrome or whatever it is.
Mm,
So, this is one of the most profound tools that I found to
yeah.
access those parts and do that subconscious, like deep healing work. And
Mm,
so, if you're interested, a therapist, a coach, someone who is trained can help you access that part. But also, the exercises we talked about today can really help you access that inner child and do some of that work for yourself. So,
yeah.
give it a shot, get curious, connect, inside and see if these effects will help your confidence as well.
Yeah, 100%. And the last thing I wanted to say before we kind of close is that everything that we talk about on all of our episodes is lifelong work.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just do inner child work for 3 months and then think, right, I'm done, I'm good. Um, I still do it now. I know that you do it. And it's an ongoing process, like a lifelong ongoing process, because, through life, as we grow and as we change, we kind of reach the kind of edges of our comfort zone, and then things become a bit scary again, and it might trigger certain memories from childhood, and we might get a bit overwhelmed and anxious about things, and the inner child work kind of helps us to kind of push those boundaries and feel good while we do it.
Mm-hmm.
So as you go through life and you're constantly growing and changing, this kind of work is a great tool to kind of take with you along the journey.
I love that. Thank you so much for saying that. That's so important.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I definitely think we should do another one of these because I feel like we've only just scratched the surface with inner child. There's so much more that we can kind of talk about, but unfortunately, our time is up for today. And I've loved talking about this because I'm so, so passionate about inner child work. Um, and yeah, just wanted to say to all the listeners that we will be back in 2 weeks' time. And for more information on who we are, what we do, our love of all things confidence and self development, you can find or follow us from our social media information, which will be posted below in the comments. And if you've liked what you've heard, please feel free to share, to like, or subscribe. And we will see you again in 2 weeks' time.